Hi, my name is Avodio Wally, President of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Contra Costa in Alameda County, and I'm here with our candidate for Contra Costa District Attorney, Mr. Paul Graves, who is a Senior Deputy District Attorney with the Contra Costa County Office of the District Attorney. Mr. Graves, can you tell us a little bit about what's going on here with the current election and what we can expect here in these coming weeks as things kind of, ramp up towards the elections on June 5th?
Sure. I think the public is actually starting to find out that this is a very important election for the future of our county. When we're talking about the district attorney, we're talking about the chief law enforcement officer in the county. And so I think information and awareness is going to be very heightened, and it's very important that voters understand all the candidates in the race.
Absolutely, and as we've all seen in the media, this is a pretty high-profile election, and we're all, pretty interested about what's going on because, in essence, we're all really stakeholders, and there are so many issues that intersect with this particular position. So, looking at it from the standpoint of, let's say, like a job interview, what makes you more qualified?
Well, I'm the only candidate in this race that actually has been a prosecutor for his entire career. I've been a prosecutor here for 22 years. I have supervised the family violence unit currently, which is sexual assault, domestic violence, and elder abuse. I previously supervised the homicide unit, and I've been serving this county since 1995 when I graduated law school as a prosecutor.
Well, that's pretty awesome. So clearly, you are from this area and you feel that is going to bring a lot of value to the community. Now, with regard to what some of the specific issues are here that we're grappling with in the county, what are some of the things that you'd like to bring in terms of, an impact and a positive change?
Sure. Well, in my opinion, one of the biggest issues we have facing the county is there's a variety of different crimes in East County, Central County, and West County. They all have their own unique crime issues. And as a district attorney, you have to understand the diversity of the county, and you have to have a proactive approach to address the crime in each section of the county. A one-size-fits-all approach does not work. And I will tell you that one of the things that strikes me is the length of time it takes currently to get a case through the criminal justice system is doing a real disservice to the victims. Your typical misdemeanor case can take over a year to get to trial, and your felony cases are taking over 3 years to get to trial. And I can tell you a story when I was prosecuting sexual assault cases several years ago. I got in the unit and there was a young woman who had reported being molested by her father when she was 13, and a case was filed. When I got into the unit, she was 2 months away from turning 18 years old, and that's unacceptable. We need to have accountability. This is about public safety, but we need to have victims served first.
That's pretty interesting. And so you feel that from your position, you're able to enact policies that will help drive impact in this particular area?
Absolutely. As somebody who's been in that office for 22 plus years, there's a lot of changes that we can make in the office. We still have the same structure that we had 22 years ago. And for a large number of our cases, including felonies and misdemeanors, when the case is filed, it goes on a shelf. And then somebody will take it over to court, and then it goes back on a shelf. It's my goal to structure our office into a more victim-centered approach where we don't do it on a crime-based model but on a victim-based model. Get cases in the hands of district attorneys as early as possible so that when your car gets broken into, you can call my office and you actually have a district attorney who knows who you are, what the case is about, and can get you the information you need. And I believe we can do that, absolutely.
That's great. And so given some of the polarity that's out there in the media and what people are kind of weighing in this election, it sounds like what you're bringing to the table here is a lot of that project management expertise, having been in the DA's office, and the incumbent or the interim DA right now, Ms. Diana Beckton right now, is coming from kind of a whole different set of expertise. So what makes you confident that your set of skills is really going to be what's needed in the county?
Well, everything is about leadership and accountability. And when you've been in the office and prosecuted every kind of case in that office, you understand each individual unit, you understand what needs there are, and it's about leadership and public safety. We can talk broad topics all day long, and there's some valid discussions to be had, but when it comes down to it, it is about leadership and accountability. And the way I always look at it is this. When the police go out, and if there's an important case, and God forbid it's a loved one of somebody you know or I know, but when they make that phone call at 2 o'clock in the morning, and they need advice from a district attorney, do you want somebody with 22 years of experience answering those questions, directing the investigation, or do you want somebody that's never prosecuted a case before getting that phone call?
Interesting. And so given, what people are being led by out there in the media, are there any specific data points or things that we should know that you feel would kind of set the record straight in terms of maybe what some of the predominant buzz is out there?
Well, some of the stuff that you hear, there's a broad array of topics, from bail reform to property crimes. And I'll give you an example. Property crimes, Prop 47 made it basically a misdemeanor if you commit a theft under $950. And no matter how many times you steal under $950, it will never be a felony. And so that's what I talk about, prioritizing the office and sort of changing the way we look at things and working with law enforcement to make sure that we are serving the community and doing the best we can in light of some of the changes of the law so that we can make sure that people are not recidivist thieves and that we can actually make a difference in the community.
Interesting. And so this is one particular issue that you feel is kind of impacting recidivism. Is there anything else that you feel is kind of part of that AB 109 type of effort out there to try to curb some of that reentry activity, or rather curb the reentry back into prison, the recidivism?
Sure. Well, we have an obligation to try to have people, if they do go to prison, when they come out, to have them be productive members of the community. And I would never say anything different. Obviously, that helps cut down on crime. But the shift in the dialogue has been towards defendants' rights over victims' rights. And I've been a victim advocate for over 22 years, working very hard. And I believe that our office's obligation is to serve victims of crime and that their concerns should be a priority over concerns of people who commit the crime. And that doesn't mean we can't do it without compassion. I believe in saving lives. I believe that our job is every victim, witness, and defendant we come in contact with is an opportunity to actually change a life. But we need to do so with an understanding of the impact it has on public safety. And we always need to be mindful of every decision we make has to impact public safety. I could give you an example when it comes to bail reform. And there's some topics to be had. There's some changes that could be made in bail reform, the current bail system. One of the things we've been working with is a risk assessment tool. And what that is the probation department will basically come up with a number based on risk of recidivism when somebody's in custody. That's just a tool. We should not use that and supplant the role of a judge in deciding whether or not somebody should be released from custody or what appropriate bail should be. And you may recall last year in the summer, San Francisco has a similar risk assessment tool. And the judge let somebody out of custody based on a number, and the number was wrong. It had been miscalculated. And that individual went out in the community and killed a 71-year-old man during the course of a robbery. And so that's what I'm talking about, that any decision we make, any reforms we make, we really need to be cognizant of the impact it could potentially have on public safety.
Interesting. So some of these challenges you feel can be addressed from a sort of a systemic level where you can kind of, change policies around and stuff. And so what would some of those policies be that maybe have some of those softer qualities with regard to, let's say, societal, ailments or things that are maybe kind of on a whole different level besides, how we traffic cases through the district attorney's office?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is, one of my sayings always has been to do the right thing. And each individual is different. And so when I talk about speeding up the process in the system, it's having a recognition of those people that we can actually get into a drug program, and we have an obligation or a need to get them in as quick as possible, instead of having that case languish for over a year, because obviously if the case, even if they're out of custody, they could go out and recidivate, which a lot of drug offenders are going to do. So prioritizing cases and actually accountability by getting them in hands of district attorneys early and making those decisions to do the right thing as early as possible can have us focus on some of the more serious or violent crimes that we need to, and some of these more policy decisions, these more broader-based policy decisions to protect the community.
Are there any particular programs that you feel need to be, brought into practice to help drive a positive impact? Because it seems like there is still quite a bit of recidivism. Or can you speak to the metrics? I don't want to misquote what we're actually doing right or wrong here.
Sure, we're doing a lot right in this county, and actually if you look at our incarceration rate to state prison, back in 2011, the most comprehensive study that was done, we were second from the bottom in the state of California with the number of people we're sending to state prison. Nevada County was the only one lower than us. And I believe in 2015 we were 7th from the bottom. So we've been making some hard decisions and really working with some of the programs in place to make a difference, but you can't shift completely away from what our main role is, which is public safety. One of the things, you asked for an example, human trafficking, we've been woefully inadequate with our response to human trafficking. And a lot of our exploited women and juveniles are ones that will go out and commit crimes, be it as a result of being human trafficked as well. And so I have promised, and it will happen under my administration, we will have a human trafficking unit, a comprehensive unit that will help track at-risk juveniles, runaways, and then offer them programs like a diversion program. Instead of criminalizing people who've been exploited, it's actually giving them an opportunity to get their job skills, their education, counseling that they need, and drug counseling, because that's very important. We have an obligation to save our youth and to save people who are being exploited. And traditionally, human trafficking in our county has been treated by rounding up the people who are being exploited and not going after the exploiters. And that needs to change, and we have been changing that the last several years.
How do you feel that this position can help mitigate some of that kind of tension on the kind of racial side of things, where we have, let's say, certain pockets of constituencies throughout the county feeling like they're being mistreated, whether it be in the court system or by the law enforcement?
Sure. Well, as a district attorney, we have an obligation to have an open dialogue with all diverse areas of our community. We really do. And it's not just talking, it's actually listening. And when people speak to us, we need to listen, have a mutual dialogue, and understand where they feel that the system is failing them, and work together to actually come up with some solutions. As a district attorney, the cases we generally get are cases that police have already arrested on, and we're reviewing them to make sure we can prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt before filing. That's what we're doing, but it doesn't mean that we don't have an obligation to get out in the community and go to each respective area of the community and make sure people feel they're being represented and they trust law enforcement, they trust our office. And a lot of that comes from information, to be honest with you, understanding the process and what we are doing and why we're making certain decisions and filing. And that's an important dialogue to have.
Yes, certainly trust in the DA's office is right now one of the key topics. And with regard to what happened with the previous DA and the culture that remains at the district attorney's office, how do you feel that your entry into the position of district attorney will help drive positive change where we ultimately would all like to see it?
Well, I'll remind you, last year when my former boss got into some trouble, the people in my office, as well as law enforcement, asked me to step up. And that was a very difficult decision to make when you're asked to step up and run against your boss. And I did because it was the right thing to do. And the men and women that work in that office, they want to be led by somebody with honesty, integrity. They want to build that trust and bridge with the community. And so it was really humbling and truly an honor that they looked to me to fill that void. They've seen me in action for 22 years. They know who I am, they know what I'm all about, and they believe that I'm the person that can make that change and have that dialogue with the community so that we're doing as much as we can to be the best office we can be.
And what would you say to someone that maybe suspects that what is needed is maybe like new blood versus bringing someone from within? Is there an advantage or something that you could share with us to maybe allay any concerns that you're part of the positive change that we'd all like to see?
Sure, I believe I have been part of the positive change. And there's a couple things. One is my relationship with law enforcement. I'm available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to answer questions, to help with investigations. And I believe that's important to have somebody in the office who understands that, because we don't want to be arresting people where maybe there's not enough evidence to charge cases. And there's at least an ability to have that dialogue with the police. I've also been active in the community in victims' rights issues. And as well as getting into our schools, the proactive approach that I talk about is something that our office should be doing more of. I go out into the high schools and I teach sexual assault awareness and intervention at the high schools. The vast number of sexual assault victims are between 17 and 30 years old. So it was my goal to get out and actually teach awareness, teach things like bystander intervention, how to treat each other with respect, not victim blame, in hopes that we can cut down on the number of rape cases and sexual assaults that occur. We did the same thing with internet safety for middle schoolers. We have two programs, one for the parents and one for the students. We go out to the schools and we talk to them about internet safety and things they can do to make sure that they're safe. And it's from a perspective of trying to educate, not trying to lecture. And giving people the tools in those areas, it cuts down on the number of crimes, and that's what I've always been, is very proactive. And I believe as a DA, you want somebody who understands areas that we can be proactive and is able to do it. I can give you another example. I brought back the To Catch a Predator program in my office, and that's something that I'm very proud of, but it's an ability for us to reach out and find people who seek to victimize the youth in our community and get them before we actually have a victim. Instead of being reactionary and waiting for somebody to be a victim, we're actually getting people before that happens. And I believe that's a very important tool. And we can expand those sort of programs into other areas that impact the community.
Awesome. So tell us your big why. I mean, share with us something that helps us understand, Paul Graves, here behind the position here. Why do you do this?
I've been passionate about being a prosecutor since I was in law school. It's my form of serving the public, and I really, really believe that we have an opportunity, like I said before, to change lives and to be the kind of office, whether they're a victim, witness, or defendant, where we can make a true difference in the community. And to me, it's something I've been passionate about. I am a career prosecutor, and I will remain a career prosecutor. But we could do so much more in our office, and I look forward to the opportunity to lead this office in a new direction, where you see a district attorney not going to $100 plate dinners, but actually out at schools, talking to children. We can make a difference and hopefully direct them in a path, either to be a prosecutor, a lawyer, a doctor, whatever they may be, but to avoid sort of the issues that occur as people go through the system. And I love this community. I love Contra Costa County, and I love working for the office, and it would be an honor to serve this community as district attorney.
That's great. Are there any issues that you feel we should all be apprised of that maybe haven't gotten as much airtime out there? Certainly, as we lead into the elections and, the ballots are already out there, people are already kind of casting their votes. And so is there something that we need to push out there that people really need to understand about what we need to accomplish here in the DA's office?
Well, just remember, the district attorney's office, primary responsibility is public safety and serving victims of crime. That is what we're there for, and so be very careful of some national dialogue or national statistics that may or may not apply to Contra Costa County. We have our own unique problems and our own unique issues, and so I would ask people to do their homework and to look at each issue and reach out to people that understand the dynamic of what's going on in Contra Costa County. Having lived here my entire career since 1995, I understand we've got a fantastic community here in Contra Costa. That's why I love living here and love serving the community. But a lot of the national dialogue that goes on doesn't apply here. And so just be very careful about the statistics you may hear or issues you may hear of, because as far as Contra Costa County is concerned, we've actually been on the cutting edge of law enforcement for years.
That's interesting. So when we speak about the national dialogue versus the local one, and what, let's say, someone might say of, let's say, Soros funding versus, the political influence that maybe the local police officers association may have on the DA's office, what are some of the things that you feel are kind of out of place here in terms of the predominant dialogue that's out there in the community?
Well, I mentioned one of them about the incarceration rates. I mean, there's no doubt that you hear statistics that the United States of America incarcerates more individuals than anybody else, and that is maybe true. But when you look at Contra Costa County and our rate of incarceration, one study, in fact, it was funded by a group that helped fund Prop 47 and 57, they even said if more counties functioned like Contra Costa County, we wouldn't have an incarceration problem or a prison overcrowding problem in California. So you really need to understand your own community. And when it comes to law enforcement, firefighters, and the people who work in my office who have all endorsed me, those kind of endorsements are very important to me and should be important to the community, because when you think about it, they've had the opportunity to watch me for 22 years in office. They know what I'm all about. They know how I supervise. They know what my goals are and my integrity and my honesty. And those kind of endorsements to me are far more important than talking to somebody for maybe 10 minutes and filling out an application and getting an endorsement. You really want somebody that understands what's going on in the county and also is passionate about what they do, so that they will actually lead this county in a better direction.
Fantastic. So there you have it, folks. Senior Deputy District Attorney, Mr. Paul Graves, Contra Costa County District Attorney's Office. Thank you for coming out here, Mr. Graves.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate it.
All right, thank you.